All right, welcome to the AthleteHack podcast. Today I'm talking to Jonny and Yusef out of Propane Fitness. Can you guys probably introduce yourselves, say which one's Jonny, which one's Yusef, and maybe give me a little bit of background on your training, any kind of accomplishments you've had. I think I see Jonny's powerlifting right now, and kind of how you got into coaching.
Sure. So my name's Yusef. I'm one of the writers at Propane Fitness. We're basically just two training enthusiasts that wanted to set up a blog initially as kind of a sounding board and just to get our thoughts down on paper. And the main goal of that is just to get sort of evidence-based fitness nutrition recommendations and make them as accessible as possible, whittling down the recommendations to kind of the most easily implementable steps. So our kind of ethos is Occam's razor, which is the idea of making something as simple as it needs to be, but no simpler than that. So yeah, that's it. The website's propane.fitness or propanefitness.com. And we're currently both competitive powerlifters as well as that. So we like to do it ourselves as well. Jonny's a little bit more successful in the powerlifting domain.
So, dude, I think I saw a video of you doing some tricking or some tumbling. You do like
Yeah,
some gymnastics as well.
yeah,
Like,
that's my main kind of interest, and I think that's how I got into lifting to begin with.
oh, cool.
Um, it was just yeah, training alongside that. It complements it very well, and yeah, both kind of took off, which is quite good. I think with lifting, there's a common misconception that it tightens you up and you just immediately turn into this like fat powerlifter. But I think yeah, it's a very useful tool, and if it's used in conjunction with your goal, then certainly something that you want to keep within your repertoire.
Yeah, excellent. So Jonny, any words there?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Jonny. Yusuf kind of covered the website, so I won't go over that, but Yusuf actually convinced me to get into powerlifting initially. I started off training into looking into like bodybuilding and
Sweet.
aesthetic improvement, mainly from a fat loss point of view, because I was a pretty chubby kid. Kind of accidentally got quite strong. Yusuf suggested that I try competing. And then, yeah, had quite a successful year of it, really, so far. Doing my second international competition soon.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah.
What's that and where is it?
So that's it's the World Championships in the IPF, and it's in Saulo in Finland. So I have to travel a long way to do 9 reps on a platform, essentially. But yeah, so the competition there is incredible.
Yeah, I
So
imagine.
it's kind of a small fish in a massive pond, unfortunately.
So, out of interest, what weight class are you, and what lifts are you hoping to put up on the day, or is that like a trade secret, or?
No. So so I'm in the 93 kilo weight category. So anywhere between 83 and 93 kilos, and I'm right at the top of that at the minute. So I'm like between 92 and 93 kilos, depending on the day. And then in terms of lifts, in an ideal world, it would be like a 235, 240 kilo squat, 150 kilo bench, and then just anything around a 300 kilo deadlift.
300
And
kg deadlift.
unfortunately, yeah,
Dang.
unfortunately that puts me, I think, still in the bottom quartile in the world. So, but
Man,
yeah, it should be a good experience.
yeah. From a CrossFit background, that's insanely strong. Like, that's really,
I
really
I
strong.
can do it every minute on the minute though, like you guys can. So that's the difference.
All right. So yeah. So you guys, I see you do online coaching, and I think you help people with diet plans as well. Um, so do you do in-person coaching, or is it all online?
No, it's all online for us at the moment. So
Cool.
I'm studying full time. Johnny's working full time. So it's just kind of something that we do mainly out of the love for it, just alongside our full time stuff. So yeah, in person coaching wouldn't really be a good option for us.
Ah, fair enough. it's really cool. I think more and more people are kind of looking online to find this stuff, and it looks like you guys actually got some really credible information. I see you.
It's good to hear.
You link to articles, and you kind of back stuff with evidence, like you say, which is like kind of a breath of fresh air in the fitness industry.
Oh no, very glad to hear that.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh yeah. So going into a little bit of your training philosophy, you're into evidence-based training. Can you kind of go into some like templates or some some methods you guys like to use or have latched onto and found success with? And then, if you can go into a bit of it, how you think that kind of thing might apply not just to powerlifters, but people into general fitness, and maybe CrossFit or concurrent training as well.
Sure. So I think both Yusef and myself have done, I would imagine, most programs between the two of us that are available, at least as far as hypertrophy and strength are concerned. I personally started off, as I said, with a really bodybuilding focus, doing like 50 sets for back and stuff like that, like a body part split, and that's evolved over time. And I did a long period of 5-3-1, like probably nearly 2 years on 5-3-1. I think that's quite popular in the CrossFit world.
Yeah.
So
I think everyone's done that, probably for not long enough.
Yeah. So I think that takes a long time to mature. But now, both of us are on a daily undulating periodization based program, which is basically a fancy way of saying a higher frequency on the main lifts, pushing for more of a specific focus. So obviously, looking to get better at squat, bench, and deadlift. We both squat, bench, and deadlift 3 or 4 times a week, with each day being a different focus. So high reps, anything from I think 10 reps to right the way down to singles.
Okay.
So that's how we both currently approach training. As far as how that I think that like barbell training or strength work relates to kind of the general fitness enthusiast. I think as Yusef touched on, there's a big misconception that powerlifting will make you inflexible and stiff, etc. And I actually think that practicing a deadlift, a squat, a bench press, and then also overhead press, that kind of thing, does put joints through a full range of motion that most people wouldn't experience in just a day-to-day life, sitting in a chair, walking around the office, that kind of thing. So I think practicing full range of motion, particularly in the hips and shoulders, and then loading those movements is probably the best way to structure any kind of fitness program, even if strength or hypertrophy is maybe not your main focus.
Yeah, so you think like just the benefit, including those lifts, just kind of opens you up to kind of some base movement patterns that you think transfer pretty well then? Yeah. I
think there's also the Kelly Starrett, who's a big name in CrossFit. Has this idea of like making the invisible visible. If you can't do a squat, there's a reason why not, and it's usually movement restriction. So squat's probably the biggest in terms of lower body movement. That's the biggest indicator of where you're deficient, and then anything horizontally or vertically pressing is going to show you any shoulder or like thoracic spine restrictions as well.
Okay, cool. So Yusef, I know you said you do kind of your background was in tumbling, or you've done something that is that from parkour or traditional gymnastics?
Yeah, mainly traditional gymnastics, but as you said, I quite like the tricking, and I think a lot of these sports kind of melt into one, don't they? So they're all very, very accessible. If you've got sort of a basic foundation in one discipline, you can sort of switch between them relatively easily. I think if someone were to go into that, I think gymnastics is a good starting point, because then you don't develop bad habits in your technique from the onset, and then you can kind of adapt it according to a certain style. But in terms of the lifting for that as well, so based on what Jonny said about what we're currently doing is the DUP, which is very squat, bench, deadlift focused. Just to kind of caveat for the listeners that's quite specific to a certain purpose. And I've noticed like a lot of people sort of doing DUP that you see on Instagram and so on at the moment, which is fine, but I think it's not something that I would personally recommend to many of my clients or a lot of athletes to begin with, in the sense that if it's someone who wants to just get generally stronger, generally bigger, then they shouldn't really be overly focused on those three lifts rather than developing all-round strength. And what you said, James, about people who haven't done 5-3-1 for long enough, certainly makes sense to me. And I think if you ask a lot of people who have been lifting for a while, what do you think would have happened if you just did 5-3-1 from day one and didn't mess around and hop between programs? Like, I wish I'd done that, because I reckon we've all wasted so much time just hopping between stuff, rather than just sticking to a program and letting it run its course.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think all of us can say, as soon as something starts working, we're like, oh sweet, it's working. What else can I do?
Yeah, exactly.
You have that patience to just write it out for a while. Like, I think especially if you don't have a coach, it probably just takes a few years of doing that before you go, you know what, maybe I'll just stick with something for a while. So let's see. You reckon best thing for a beginner to do would be to find a very, very simple program and stick to it. Like, how would you guys mix in kind of conditioning with strength work, and do you think the two? How do you think the two would affect each other?
Okay, so that it's a question we get a lot actually from our clients, is that so generally speaking, for somebody who just has general body composition goals, we would provide, alongside nutrition plan, we generally provide like a basic barbell progression based around either linear or a double progression model. And the common response we get with that is, oh, actually, I want to do a Tough Mudder or a 5K or a half marathon or whatever in 6 months' time. How would you recommend working conditioning or cardio in with that? So the first thing that I would always look at personally is making the work as specific as possible. So I think there's a tendency with cardio to think that weight training gives insufficient cardiovascular training, and that to get cardiovascularly fit, you need to be doing something like running on a treadmill or rowing a rowing machine, etc. So if the goal is a marathon, for example, then I would just use whatever it is. So in that case, it's running, and then just a basic overload type progression on that specific thing. So weight training, for example, might decrease over time in terms of total volume over the week. And then the marathons-based specific training might increase in total volume over the week. But you're always kind of keeping in mind the basic principles of total work done, total stress, and then recovery over time.
Yeah, so, sorry, Yusuf, you got some words on that? Or?
Yeah, I think what Jonny said there of prioritizing the amount of total work done towards your goal and allocating it towards that makes a lot of sense. I guess that leads us into the CrossFit side quite easily. But also we're a big fan of Eric Helms, and we went to his seminar last year where he mentioned something that I thought was quite an interesting point, of that people conceptually segregate things like a bodybuilding workout and then they go and do their cardio and then do their intervals and stuff like this. And he was saying that physiologically, a lot of the adaptations that would happen from doing, say, 3 sets of 10 squats have a lot of overlap with doing an interval training, that from a cardiovascular perspective, you're still working to a high percentage of VO2 max followed by an interval and rest and repeat. So you're still kind of pushing your lactate threshold and your aerobic capacity and things by doing something that is typically seen as just a bodybuilding workout. So I thought that's quite a cool concept, that there's a range of adaptations that happen within a certain training modality.
Yeah, I think that's always been a kind of a key kind of concept of CrossFit, and I think when you actually start to get into it, especially if you look at kind of the original Glassman articles, you start seeing he's really big on using those kind of max aerobic power intervals. So very set, like 3 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest for 8 sets, then you linear progress that and stuff. And you can very easily see how doing, you know, back squats and deadlifts, you'd end up actually with almost very similar work rest intervals, and you're getting all those same cardiovascular benefits from that. So yeah, that's really cool. Let's see. Oh, nutrition wise, I know you guys have some great ideas on nutrition. You make it really, really nice and simple. So kind of how would you break it down? What do you think are the most important things, starting at the top and then kind of filtering down if you've got time from there?
That's a good question. Again, actually, back on the Eric Helms thing, he's come up with a pyramid that describes just what you've asked there. And if you go on our website and look for the Propane protocol, it's included in the infographic on there, and it just has kind of a stratified structure. So calories as the very basic thing that, you know, that's the ultimate unavoidable foundation for any nutritional plan. And if your calories aren't in line with your goal, then there's no other amount of tweaking that will make up for that. So yeah, the pyramid is just calories at the bottom, then macronutrients, then micronutrients and fiber, and then supplements at the very top. So top being the least contribution to overall progress. So yeah, apart from that, we're not particularly dogmatic with macronutrient splits or anything. I think it depends on the goal. Wouldn't normally recommend any kind of extreme split. So anything that's like 0 carb or 0 fat or extremely high protein is usually going to skew something and affect performance negatively. So as boring as it sounds, you know, a relatively even macronutrient split with sensible calories for fat loss or muscle gain is our boring approach to nutrition.
No, that's actually bang on kind of what I've ended up doing. I've been training people full time for 5 years now, and I've been on the paleo bandwagon and the magic of carb backloading, and eventually I've ended up accepting that first and foremost it seems to be calories, and then get enough protein, and don't go 0 on fat or carbs. But it seems like if you can get your calories and your protein right and make sure you get a mix, everything else after that seems to be kind of fiddling and getting a few percent here, a few percent there. And, yeah. Do you guys use MyFitnessPal to track your diets and stuff like
that? Yeah, we do. And we both tried various different tracking methods. So I used MyNet Diary, which is a similar app, for a while. I think Yusef used Chronometer or Chronometer, however you want to pronounce it. But yeah, the benefit of MyFitnessPal is just obviously the database that it has, the barcode scanning function if you have an iPhone or like Android or whatever. So yeah, that is how we recommend people track their food. And I think thinking back, trying to stick to a kind of a consistent calorie load each day without that would have been a nightmare, really. I think like having a look at the back of every packet, noting everything down, or keeping really complicated spreadsheets is probably why bodybuilding meal plans were so popular sort of 10, 15 years ago.
What, because they just say like, well, you just eat I guess traditional bodybuilding food kind of makes it quite simple, in that they're like,
yep,
you get the chicken, carbs, rice, touch of olive oil, and then you just eat that fucking 8 times a day. And you
exactly, yeah.
Macros, it just makes it very simple.
Yeah, or as soon as you throw like a chicken sandwich in there, or like a pasty, for example, like you've got a whole load of macros to account for. So yeah, I guess single macro foods made things much easier when there wasn't a way to account for anything, something you would just buy in a restaurant or a shop.
Yeah, actually, recently I hurt my back quite badly last year. I was actually doing some jiu-jitsu, and I went to throw someone, and obviously my back wasn't talking to me about that, so I kind of really badly put it out, and it's taking a long time to get back into it. And I'm one of those guys, if I stop training, I lose my appetite, and I just naturally kind of whittle down and lose a lot of muscle, lose a lot of weight. And I think I've put on 6 kilos, started training again, put on about 6 kilos in the last kind of 2-3 months. Just being really consistent, hitting about 3,600 calories and yeah, I find myself at the end of the day kind of being like, oh man, I've got like, if I'm not paying attention, I'll have like 1,500 calories, 2,000 calories at the end of the day. And I'm like, damn it, let's whip out the ice cream.
Yeah.
That's quite a, I guess most people would say that's a sort of fortunate way for the balance to slide in that if you naturally gravitate to under eating. But yeah, I think as Jonny said, like I'm not convinced that without, if you're having a complex diet of normal foods without kind of weighing out your rice every day, then I'm not convinced that any normal person can just use hunger and satiety as a natural gauge for their calories. And there's a lot of evidence to show that even when people are tracking, that starts to diverge, whether it's to do with the accuracy of tracking things or whatever it is, but the error margin starts to increase more and more, say 6 months into a diet. So the idea of having the barcode scanner and just making sure that everything that goes into your mouth is accounted for is absolutely vital, in my opinion.
It is as well. Like people, well, maybe less so in the CrossFit world, but Rob Wolf and paleo advocates do get a lot of stick. But I think really, if you look at what they're trying to do, objectively speaking, they're just attacking the calorie equation from a different angle. If you restrict somebody's food intake to meat, fish, vegetables, and some small amount of carb sources, it is difficult if you're just sticking to those to severely overeat. So I guess it's kind of the lesser of two evils is being really anal and tracking everything with your phone allows you to eat whatever you want.
At least in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think once you've been tracking for a long time and you've got a slightly better gauge of it, then you can maybe start to move away from it. Saying that, I don't personally trust myself to stop tracking, and I wouldn't put the bets on that I'd be hitting my macros within 50 grams if I were to stop and just kind of do it by memory or by feeling.
Yeah.
But maybe some people can. I don't know if they're particularly objective.
Yeah, Jedi Masters.
I think there's some guys that they just have a really natural sense of, you know what I mean? They're just genetically, I don't know, awesome, or I don't know, whatever. Their parents treat them really well as kids. I don't know what happens, but they just seem to know exactly how much to eat and just, I'll eat whatever I want, whenever I want, and just get super lean. Like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, well, that could be one of the factors in obesity as well, in the appetite regulation aspect. Could be the biggest kind of explanatory factor for people being overweight, in the sense that, that those kind of people who you described are the ones who happen to have their leptin levels kick in at a certain calorie level, which puts them in a deficit or puts them at maintenance compared to others who just, something's gone wrong.
I think if you look at the untrained population, taking out psychological and emotional issues with food, look at the range of body weights at different heights, what you're basically observing is the spectrum of different satiety levels for certain amounts of food. So the reason that somebody is skinny as opposed to somebody is fat is simply because that person's satiety mechanisms regulate them at that body weight. And really, wherever you fall on that spectrum, if you take somebody's tracking tools or whatever away from them, unless you're actively making an effort to change that by doing kind of what we're talking about and being aware of your calorie load, etc., everyone just has a tendency to tend towards a certain body composition. So I think that's what's so important about becoming mindful of, assuming you want to change the way you look or perform, becoming mindful of how many calories you're eating across like a day or a week or a month. So in summary, we love MyFitnessPal, to answer your question.
All right. So just to end on, so despite saying all that, are there any kind of supplements you recommend people take or you've had success with, once they have got their calories sorted out?
Well, so the most common one would be just a protein powder supplement. If you look at somebody's diet that they're not already mindful of nutrition, the things that they're generally deficient in is fiber and protein, as well as obviously like the micronutrients that go along with that. But adding just a whey powder throughout the day can be a way to get somebody's macronutrient profile looking more sensible than it maybe was if they were just eating kind of the standard, like government recommended type diet. On top of that, generally it's things like a multivitamin, fish oil, vitamin D, and then creatine. More, as Yusuf's pointed out before, more of the evidence-based stuff, and less so like the advanced pre-workouts with the 7 types of beta-alanine in. Tend to keep things pretty simple.
Yeah, I've tried a pre-workout with beta-alanine before, and it just made my face really itchy. And I guess it makes you feel a bit jazzed, but I stopped it after a week because I found it was messing with my sleep a bit.
Yeah, the more I find out about supplementing with individual amino acids, the more afraid I get, to be honest. Just in the sense that the interactions that BCAAs and beta-alanine could potentially have with certain neurotransmitters and certain enzymes that break them down just makes me think that, like, in terms of cost benefit, like having a bit of extra beta-alanine compared to just getting your whole proteins in, probably not worth the benefit of the extra rep or two that you might be able to fudge out. But yeah, in terms of supplements in general, exactly what Jonny said. I think it's maybe semantics, but we don't really classify a whey protein powder as a supplement per se, just because it's kind of goes under your macronutrient umbrella. But apart from that, creatine and vitamin D both seem to have quite good safety profiles, both generally good evidence basis for improving performance. And vitamin D, it's technically a hormone, but
it's technically a psychosteroid, isn't it?
Yeah, but obviously we're all generally deficient in that in this part of the country, this part of the world. But yeah, apart from that, any supplements outside of that work are probably illegal. So
yeah, well, actually, it's pretty crazy. The other day, I interviewed a couple that are doing their doctorates on supplements and steroids, kind of in Europe. So they've done a lot of work in Belgium, the Netherlands, and the UK, and they found 14% of off-the-shelf supplements have some kind of illegal PED in them.
It's frightening.
Fucking outrageous. They found that 14%, and they've got like a few case studies where athletes have failed their doping because they're taking goddamn multivitamin or a pre-workout, and it's not even things that would benefit them, but it's just I think
that's heinous.
The problem is where they're making it in China, you get a lot of kind of cross-pollination and contamination of different things. So like the same factories where they're making ephedra and some like other illegal things, they kind of accidentally get thrown into the mix with the latest fat stripping pill and stuff like that.
Well, the fact that the pharmaceuticals industry is so tightly regulated, yet the supplement industry is not, and you might have things that aren't on the label that are claimed that they are, or the other way around. Opens up to all kinds of risks for athletes that have to go through drug tests or experiencing dodgy side effects. So that's a bit scary to hear.
Yeah.
There was a study done a while ago on protein powders and the percentage claimed amino acid profile and then the actual amino acid profile. And I think it was Optimum Nutrition, and I think my protein came out pretty well. But I think the fact that there can be that much of a variance in a protein powder that it's meant to have a single ingredient.
There was one, the worst one claimed like 98%, and I think actual content was like 2%.
What?
So they're basically, I think, they were just selling like sugar or whatever. But
the fact that you can't taste that when you drink.
Well, it probably tasted great.
Yeah, man, this is amazing.
But yeah, if you apply that to something that's meant to contain 12 different things,
a proprietary blend, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I suppose our tip with that would be, I tend to use my protein, for example, just because I've had good experiences with them in the past, and they seem to have decent kind of screening procedures over their products, and they're always posting they get some of their products tested, and they do some screening for performance athletes as well that get drug tested. So that versus kind of a small supplement company that maybe makes two things both of them have kind of like super jack and a drop on the front.
Yeah.
It's a lot more likely to have something in that you're not expecting.
Yeah. All right, guys. So on that note, let's call it there. So just quickly, can you say your website, maybe your Facebook page, and kind of mailing list that people can get a hold of you on?
Sure. So if you go on propanefitness.com or propane.fitness, that's propane like the gas. And we've got a protocol up there, the infographic, which describes a lot of the approach that we've discussed in this podcast. And if you want to follow us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, I think it's all of them are just the domain name /propane fitness.
All right, excellent, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Talk to you
All
later.
right, thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.